People started disappearing the week Alero and Maki came back. In the quiet village of northern Sali, where red dust clung to every footstep and the night swallowed sound, there lived two sisters, who everyone said were cursed from birth, Alero and Maki. They were born 1 year apart, to a sickly woman and a father who disappeared before Maki could walk. The village women said the girls were punishments because their faces were swollen and rough, like yam skins. Their eyes never seemed to match in size. Alero had teeth that stuck out even after her teenage years, and Maki's skin had dark, raised boils that never went away. Children ran when they came near. Grown men laughed openly. Even the elders, who were supposed to show mercy, would mutter things like, God creates, but sometimes he forgets to finish. Their mother died when they were still teenagers. Nobody helped bury her. Alero and Maki dug the grave themselves behind the cracked mud house they had grown up in. After that, they were completely alone. They survived on leftovers and menial jobs, carrying water for people too lazy to fetch it themselves, cleaning chicken droppings from the churchyard, selling weak herbs at the market that people barely bought. But even as people avoided them, they watched them, especially the women. Jealousy doesn't always come from beauty. Sometimes it comes from fear. People noticed something strange. The girls never cried, never fought back, never got angry. They just stared. Long, quiet stares that made your stomach twist. And then came the night of the new moon. That night, no stars showed. Even the insects were quiet. No dogs barked. It was like the air itself held its breath. A young boy named Toby, who lived across the road, couldn't sleep, so he went outside to relieve himself, and as he stepped behind a banana tree, he saw the sisters leaving their compound. They were barefoot, no lantern or torchlight, just walking into the bush. But the bush they entered wasn't ordinary. It was the old bush, the one elders warned about, the one where people said witches danced and voices whispered from the ground. Even goats didn't go near it. Toby ran inside and hid under his bed. He told no one. At sunrise, the sisters returned. And something about them had changed. They were still ugly. But it was different. Their skin looked tighter, their eyes brighter, their voices sounded smoother. They walked differently, like they were being carried by something beneath the ground. And then, they vanished. For 1 full month, no one saw Alero or Maki. People assumed they had gone mad or died in the bush. Some felt relief. Others whispered they must have followed their mother into the spirit world. Then, one Saturday morning, just before market opened, they returned. The woman who first saw them dropped her basket of bitter leaf and ran. The sisters were beautiful. Not just ordinary beauty, unreal beauty. Their skin glowed like wet clay in the sun. Their bodies were shaped like carvings. Their eyes, too wide, too clear, like glass marbles. Every man stopped to stare. Every woman stared with a face twisted between awe and hatred. The chief's son, who once spat at Maki's feet, nearly fainted trying to talk to her. But none of that was the strange part. The strange part was that they acted like nothing had changed. As if they had always looked that way. As if they had never been mocked or hated. They went to the market, bought beans, yams, goat meat. They smiled at children who once threw stones at them. Nobody asked questions, not even the priest. Because that same night, when the sisters walked past the shrine near the edge of the bush, the carved idol sitting on the shrine's bench, an idol that hadn't moved in over 40 years, turned its head to watch them pass. And in the morning, a girl from the village was found, lying stiff behind her father's barn, her eyes rolled back and mouth full of dirt. Nobody dared say it out loud. But everybody knew. And that was only the beginning. After the sisters returned, the village changed. They were too perfect. Faces smooth like wet clay, skin glowing even without sun. Their eyes were too clear, too wide. People stared but didn't speak, not because of respect but because of fear. One man, Sunday, who used to mock Alero as a child, now followed her everywhere, smiling like a fool. A week later, he disappeared. When his brother found him, Sunday was sitting in a corner, shaking and whispering. They showed me their real faces. Nobody asked what he meant. That same week, a baby cried for 2 nights straight, then died. The mother swore she saw two women standing by the window before it happened. Madam Udiyu, the herbalist who used to insult the sisters, suddenly went blind while cooking. She screamed that a shadow without feet walked into her kitchen and stared at her. Animals changed too. Goats refused to walk near the sisters' house. Cats vanished. A black rooster dropped dead on their doorstep. The priest gave a strange sermon that Sunday. He spoke about hidden darkness and the need for prayer. He didn't say names, but everyone knew who he meant. No one clapped. No one said amen. Still, the sisters smiled. Still beautiful. Still quiet. One night, Toby, the boy who saw them leave for the bush, woke to a sound like breathing under his bed. Nothing was there. But in the morning, a necklace made of bone and feathers sat on his doorstep. No one believed him. But he knew something had come back with the sisters, and it was still here. The deaths were no longer random. People were found stiff in their beds, mouths open like they'd seen something terrible before the end. Everyone knew it started after Aleru and Maki came back from the old bush. Each funeral made the silence in Sally heavier. No one laughed. No one sang. The market emptied faster each day. Even the elders stopped pretending it was just coincidence. The village had kept quiet too long. Now, they were ready. At night, the elders met and chose 7 young men. Strong ones with no ties to the sisters. They were told to gather before first light, drag the girls out by force, and take them past the last tree line where the village ended. The men didn't argue. They tied red cloths around their arms, sharpened their blades, and swore they wouldn't return until the job was done. Just before dawn, the 7 young men marched to the sister's house. No talking, no chanting, only the sound of feet on dry earth. The door was shut, but not locked. Inside, the sisters stood waiting. They were not calm this time. Maki stepped back. Alero screamed when the first rope touched her arm. They fought, beat, clawed, kicked. But the men were prepared. They tied their wrists and dragged them out into the open, their white wrappers stained with dust and blood from the struggle. The village was already awake. People poured into the streets. Men, women, even children. No one helped the sisters. They came with brooms and bundles of dry leaves, sweeping the path behind them. It was not a dance. It was not a ritual. It was rejection. The old women swept hard, faces blank. The children moved fast, smearing away every trace left behind. The sound of sweeping grew louder, like a warning. Alero begged. Maki cursed. But the crowd didn't stop. They were pushed through the village paths, past every home they'd ever known. The villagers stopped at the edge of the boundary, where the village ended. The men threw them to the ground. The crowd spat on them. Some hit them with the broom. Then the crowd turned away. The sisters were no longer part of Sally. But as the crowd walked back, none of them noticed the small cracks in the ground had spread to the market square, or that something unseen was still moving beneath their feet. Even after the sisters were forced out of Sally, the calamities didn't stop. People still died in their sleep. The animals cried through the night. The cracks in the earth reached the center of the village. Something was still wrong, and everyone could feel it. When the elders called for divination, the answer was clear. The thing that came from the bush had attached itself to the village, and only the sisters who brought it could return it to where it came from. So, 2 elders and 2 strong young men were sent to find them. They walked beyond the last path, past dry land and dying trees, until they reached a broken stream. There, sitting beneath the sun with dust in their hair and silence in their eyes, were the sisters. Their beauty was still on them, but it looked tired, like it was borrowed, and time was running out. The men knelt before them. They asked for help, but they also begged for forgiveness. For the years the village had mocked them, for the way they were thrown out like animals. The sisters were reluctant at first, but later followed them back to the village. They returned to the old bush alone. No one followed, no one dared. Hours passed. Then something happened. Some say the ground shook once. Others say a wind screamed from under the soil. When the sisters came back the next morning, their beauty was gone. Their skin was rough again. Their faces were plain. They had earlier exchanged their ugliness with the lives of the villagers. But their eyes held something new, something strong. The village welcomed them back with respect and kindness. They had given up what made them adored to save those who once hated them. And now, the village understood. Beauty had never been the power. The power was surviving it all and still choosing to forgive.